Kori Rose. She was the little girl I dreamed of, and she looked just like me, but had her dad's head. She had a short life, but she had an immeasurable impact on us.
Welcome to Still a Part of Us, a place where moms and dads share the story of their child who was stillborn or who died in infancy. I'm Winter.
And I'm Lee. We are grateful you joined us today. Please note that this is a story of loss and has triggers.
Thanks to our lost parents who are willing to be vulnerable and share their children with us.
If you're listening to this podcast, just know that on our YouTube channel there are pictures and videos that are related to the stories that are being shared.
Subscribe and share it with a friend that might need it, and tell them to subscribe. Why? Because people need to know that even though our babies are no longer with us, they're still a part of us. Welcome to Still a Part of Us. We have I'm so excited to talk to Karen today. She reached out to me, and just in talking with her beforehand, I'm just so excited to talk about her daughter Kori today. So welcome. So we're so excited, Karen, that you're here today with us.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Karen, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you guys are at, and what your family looks like?
Absolutely. So my husband Josh and I live in North Carolina. We have a blended family. Josh had 2 children when we met, and I was a dog mom. So we have 12-year-old PJ and a 9-year-old girl and a 5-year-old little boy.
Awesome. That sounds so like a fun family right there.
Never a dull moment.
I'm sure. And what do you guys like to do as a family?
We play a lot. So the kids love rolling down hills and jumping off of things, all the things that give me heartburn. And Josh is like, yeah, do it again. But lots of playing. We love to travel and make new memories is what we try to focus on. So sometimes it's as simple as making pizza at home, and other times we go out and do something in the neighborhood.
Yeah, you guys sound like a family that likes to be together, and that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And are you and Josh originally from North Carolina area? Did you guys meet there, or?
No, so Josh is from North Carolina.
Okay.
I am actually from Miami, and we met in Maryland.
So it works out.
Yep. So we met at my best friend's wedding. He was the best man. So my best friend married his cousin. And that's how we met.
Oh my gosh, that is so fun. I love that so much, because you're like, now we got friends and family that are.
Yes. So my best friend and I are now cousins.
Which is so fun.
Every family function, I get to have my best friend there with me. So it's perfect.
That's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, that sounds so lovely. I love that so much. Okay, and then so when you met Josh, he had a couple kids, and when you guys got married, did you want to expand your family? Was that part of the plan? Always wanted to have a big family, or this was good? Tell me what your family plans looks like.
Sure. I always wanted to be a mom. And as I got older, I used to think I wanted at least 2. And then it was like, okay, 1 will do, just given the timeline.
Yep.
And when I met Josh, we talked a lot about having his interest in having more children because he already had 2, and my desire to be a mother. So we were always on the same page about that.
Okay.
We weren't really in a rush in the beginning because we wanted to make sure we gave the 2 children that are in our family now time to adjust to this shift in their life, having me move to North Carolina and us being in a household together when they're with us. And so we thought, let's get them acclimated to this new normal of having someone else with dad.
Yes.
And then we would explore having a child together after we had achieved that.
Okay. And so how long did you guys kind of wait after you had moved?
So it was about 2 years.
Okay.
So we were long distance for 2 years, and I lived in Chicago when we met. And
Mhm.
so by the time we came together in North Carolina, settled in here, and then we were planning our wedding.
Yes.
And we actually had two weddings.
Oh, you
So,
did? You like to
so
party too, so
yes. So the first one was very intimate,
Mhm.
and we knew we wanted to have a destination wedding and have
Oh,
all of our friends and family be with us. And I didn't want to be pregnant or, with a newborn for
right.
that destination wedding. So we thought, okay, after that, it was going to be May of 2024 was our wedding celebration, the second one.
Yeah.
And we said we would start trying then.
Okay. Wonderful. That's so fun. And then, how quickly did you get pregnant after that point in time?
So pretty quickly. It was quite the surprise.
Was it?
Before we started trying, I'm a researcher. I like to
Mhm.
know what I'm getting myself into. How do I prepare?
Yep.
Very type A in that way.
Mhm.
And I learned about ovulation kits. And
Mm.
so I said, okay, well, let me buy one. So I buy one off of Amazon. And this is April, so a month before our planned timing. And I thought, okay, well, I hit my peak the next day after I just so happened to buy the kit right before I ovulated. And
What?
so, yeah. So I said to Josh, well, let's just try and see what happens. And he goes, what's going to happen is you'll be pregnant, Karen. And no, it doesn't happen that fast. The internet says it takes at least a year, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And to my surprise, 2 weeks later, I got a positive
Oh my
test.
gosh. Oh my
And
gosh.
so I ended up being pregnant at our wedding
You
celebration.
you were. You
Yes,
were so like, "I don't wanna be pregnant during that time."
exactly. I wanted to party,
Yeah.
and it turned into me taking naps in between things when we were there.
Oh my gosh, that is really funny
Yeah.
how that happens.
Mm.
So how did you tell Josh?
We found out at the same time.
You did?
So Josh said to me, I think you should take a test. We were about to go to Atlanta for my birthday. It was two
Mhm.
days before my birthday. And he said, you've never taken so many naps before. I was napping every day that week. And I thought, no, I'm just tired. I'm a busy woman and
I'm planning a
I'm just
wedding. I
tired.
mean, yeah.
Exactly. And so I said, okay. So we go to the store and buy the test. And I told him, you look because it's going to be negative. So it's fine. And I have a video. He's standing in the doorway. And I said, okay, so what does it say? And he's like, you're pregnant. And in the video, I throw the phone and I'm just sobbing because, and they were tears of joy, but I'd
Uh,
never
yeah.
expected that
Yes.
so soon. And even everyone's journey is different, but my friends, the women in my life who have been on their journey to conceive, it took a little while.
Yeah.
And then you read about, give it a year and see how it goes.
Mhm.
And so the first month we, actively tried for it, it it took.
What did Josh say?
He just was looking at me with bewilderment. Just like,
Oh.
um, but we were so excited
Yeah.
and a little there was a lot to think about because
Yeah.
now what? We leave from Mexico in 3 weeks or something like that,
Yeah.
and we have to account for, what's happening here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it that added a couple more things for me to do before we were ready to go to Mexico for sure.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Did
Yeah.
you I know, I was like, this is so it's kind of fun how that worked out.
Mhm. Mhm.
Karen, did you end up, calling your doctor? Do you have an OBGYN at the time? And
Didn't.
okay, okay.
So I for context, I moved to North Carolina knowing just Josh.
Yes.
So
Yes,
I didn't
exactly.
have anything established here. I was still going back and forth to Chicago. And so I would just go to my doctor's appointments in Chicago when I was
Oh,
there,
yes.
right?
Okay.
So
Yeah, makes
there
sense.
was no rush to change things. And so I just started going down Google a list. I'm just like
Yep.
OBs in my area.
Yep.
And I called at least 7 of them because I wanted to be seen before we went to Mexico.
Oh,
And a
okay.
lot of offices won't see you before
Yeah,
10
8,
weeks
9,
or 8
10
weeks
weeks.
or
Yeah.
whatever
Hmm.
it is. But there was one doctor's office and they were open to seeing me at that point it was around 5 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, just to take an official test with them
Right.
and check my HCG
Yes.
because I had learned in all my research
Yes.
that you want your HCG to double every
Hmm.
couple of days, every 2 to 3 days. And so I thought, let me at least see if I can get some kind of confirmation
Hmm.
in that way because I was already showing. It was bloating because the
Yes.
baby was still small,
Yes.
but
But your
um,
body
it,
changes.
yes, yes. So I was already clearly pregnant, and so we knew that we would have to share at the wedding or when we saw our family because it was obvious that I was
Yeah.
pregnant. There was no hiding it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's I was like, wow, that is like that's quick. So they got you in and
Yes.
they were able to do the tests and such
Yep.
and it was
Did the
confirmed.
test, took my labs. They attempted an ultrasound, but at that point, there was nothing to be seen except for the gestational sac.
Yep.
And and then we went back 2 weeks later when we got back from Mexico, and we were able to see a fetal pole and a heartbeat at that point.
Okay, great. Because that would have been around 7 weeks or so, right? 7, 8.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Exactly. Hmm.
Wonderful. So did you tell your family at the wedding then?
We did.
Okay, tell me
We
about that.
did.
Tell me how that
So
went.
we had a welcome dinner on the Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got a scratch off that said, we're having a baby, right? And put it under one of the chairs under someone's chair, there is a surprise,
Yes.
right? And so one of my friends had it under her chair and she scratched it off. And so she announced, we're having a baby. She read the
How
card.
how fun.
And and it was so funny, Winter, because my sister, who lives in Miami, said to me, when I saw you, I thought something's different. And but I had on, a cover up, and I was trying my best to hide for that
Mm-hmm.
day at
Yeah.
least. But it was great because then I could be free for that
Yes.
weekend, and
Yeah.
no one would ask, no one would try to buy me a drink. Well, it was all inclusive, but
No, no, no.
no one
But
tried to
yes,
give me a
yes.
drink or
Mm-hmm.
anything,
Yeah.
or wonder why I was a little rounder in the
Yeah.
middle than usual. Yeah.
I love how sisters have this like they can
Uh-huh.
hone in on like something's
Mm-hmm.
different.
Yep. Yep. She saw it right away.
Yeah, I think that is wonderful. And I'm sure
Yeah.
everybody was just so excited for you and your
Mm-hmm.
family. Oh, that's exciting. Okay, so then you guys get home. You did go and see the fetal pole, the heartbeat. I think
Yep.
that's wonderful. And everything was looking okay at the time. Were you feeling
Yes.
okay besides feeling tired and
Yeah.
feeling
Other than,
pregnant?
yes. Besides that, everything was perfect,
Great.
and we were measuring right where we needed to be.
Okay.
And I should add that part of why I was presenting bigger than usual is because I have uterine fibroids, and they were always my uterus was just always bigger in general because I have fibroids in my uterus.
Yeah, okay.
And so now when you add a pregnancy to it, I was always slightly ahead. My uterus, the size of
Yes,
it was ahead of where we were in our pregnancy. So,
I see.
quick story. I was around 13 weeks and I was going to a conference, so I needed pants.
Yeah. Oh,
And I go to the store,
yeah.
and the saleswoman says, "Your bump is so cute." And I'm, "Thank you." And she goes, "How far along are you?" And I said, "3 months." And she goes, "Is it twin?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Are you sure?"
Yeah.
I am positive there is only one baby in here. But just to give you some, a visual of how much bigger I
Yeah.
looked,
Yeah.
although, she was quite small at the time.
Right. With your doctor, was there any concern about the fibroids during the pregnancy?
Mhm.
Okay, so they were monitoring that.
They were monitoring and really wanting to see how things developed because it was a matter of where she implanted and as she got bigger if the fibroids would impact her development in any way. When she was, the size of a blueberry, it didn't
Fine. Yeah.
matter.
Yeah.
But there was a plan to monitor from that standpoint.
Okay.
We also knew that so years past, I had had a myomectomy. So I had had some of my fibroids removed about
Mm-hmm.
5 years ago. And the other concern they had was me going into natural labor.
Mm.
And so to avoid a rupture during
Yes.
labor.
Okay.
So we had always planned that we would deliver her at around 37 weeks too,
Oh, okay.
because of the
This.
risk associated with me going into natural labor.
Okay. So there was a lot of, it sounds like this new doctor in North Carolina was they were discussing a lot of things with you and making sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. Wonderful.
Mhm. Yeah.
That that's so reassuring, especially since you're new to the area. It really is kind of a hit or miss. You got to make sure you got the right person for your
Yes.
for
And
your.
Dr. Scott was incredible. It's it's my first pregnancy. Never, I don't know what's happening in my body. It is
Yes.
creating new things every day.
Yeah.
And so
Exactly.
just being able to ask those questions, and he was so kind and just broke everything down and really explained how things worked, and it was just incredible to have him on my team.
Great. Oh, so
Mhm.
good to hear that because I've heard a number of stories where it has been really rough with yeah, doctor patient
Same.
relation, and it's hard. It's hard
Mhm.
to hear that.
Mhm.
Okay, so then you're going along great. Are you so at the 12-week ish?
Uh-huh.
Did you go in at around 12 weeks or so for
I
that
did.
one? Okay.
I did. So I probably, and I know this is unique, I had a doctor's appointment every 2 weeks
You
from the
did.
very beginning.
You
I
did.
did
Okay. Okay. That's
because there
great.
was always something going
Something.
on. This pregnancy was dramatic, really. It was like I was always the one going through it, and Kori was just in there having the time of her life. She was great. Every time I would think, oh my gosh, something's wrong, we do an ultrasound, and she's doing kung fu moves, and and I would be in excruciating pain.
Oh
Um,
no.
but so around the 12-week mark, I remember it was the 4th of July, and we were supposed to have our gender reveal because
Mhm.
we did the
Oh,
NIPT
yes.
screening,
Mhm.
and Josh's aunt had planned a gender reveal for us.
Oh.
And that day, as we're getting ready, I started bleeding.
Oh.
And Josh is cutting the grass. I'm trying to get ready, and I'm screaming for him to come into the house. And we don't know what's going on. And I pass a couple of blood clots, and I just think this is it, right? We're
Oh.
we're losing the baby. And so we go to the emergency room. I think because of the holiday, it was pretty empty. So we were taken back within 5 minutes of getting to the
Oh,
emergency room, also
great.
unheard of.
Yeah.
And the the doctor who looked at me, she said, you have a pretty large blood clot that's trying to come out. And so once it did, the bleeding stopped. But we
Oh.
had to wait for the ultrasound technician because it was a holiday. They had to come in, they were on
Mhm.
call. And we had to wait for the technician to come to look at the baby because
Right.
my cervix was still closed.
Okay.
So she said, you're not dilated or anything, but obviously you're bleeding and there are blood clots. And when she put the wand on my stomach, there was Kori
Yeah.
having a good time,
Right.
chilling. She was just fine.
She's like, "What's going
And
on, mom?"
yeah. And so from there, that started maybe 3 weeks of just really painful experiences because what we learned, my fibroids, the larger ones, had started degenerating. And so
oh,
and the way I learned it, as she's growing and she's taking blood supply,
yes.
initially the fibroids grew with her because now, your body is doing all this. It's just like a great place to grow in the
Yes.
uterus during that time.
Yeah.
But then they outgrow the blood supply.
Yeah.
And so they start to die.
Whoa.
And that's what I was experiencing. She was fine, but the
Okay.
fibroids were dying.
Oh my
And
goodness.
we learned that so the emergency room says, your baby looks okay. We recommend you see your OB as soon as possible just to get a feel for what's going on. And we went the next day to see the OB, and under the ultrasound, they could see that my fibroids were showing that they were
Just
they
kind
were
of,
degenerating.
yeah, that is fascinating.
Yeah.
But that is so scary. And like you said, probably very painful, right?
Yes, extremely painful. And I should have added before that the initial OB I was seeing, he always told me that eventually he would have to transition me to an MFM because between my age, I was advanced maternal age,
Mm-hmm.
I had a history of surgery on my uterus and I still had fibroids.
Right.
That my pregnancy was high risk,
Yes.
and
Okay.
so he had just transitioned me to the MFM the week prior.
Oh,
So I was able to go to the
okay.
MFM to really assess what was happening with the bleeding.
Okay. So
Mhm.
you said it was about 3 weeks though of just pain.
Excruciating pain. And it was just all night, all day. It
Oh,
was, and when I went to the MFM, they gave me 48 hours of Motrin, and she said, you can't take it for longer than that. And it was like 48 hours of bliss. They were the 48 hours.
you're like, bring it on.
Oh, let me tell you. And then once it wore off,
Oh,
they came on
no.
back and there was more bleeding, but at least I knew what to expect,
Right.
right? So I would see bleeding and then I would wait for a clot. And once the clot came, the
It was
bleeding stopped.
okay.
And so that happened for several weeks. And it stopped right around the 16-week mark is where it all just settled down.
Okay. And it sounds because you were going in kind of often, you were
Hmm.
always, Corey was always being monitored and she was looking
Yes.
good the entire time.
Hmm. She was
Okay.
looking good, measuring normal, and everything was going well from
Yeah.
that standpoint.
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay. And did you miss your gender reveal party? I was going to say, I was like,
Oh,
were you in
that's
the,
a
oh, I was like, were you in the ER until?
yes, that's a good question. So we actually went from the ER to the gender reveal,
Oh, you did.
and because we saw that she was okay. So Josh was keeping his
Okay.
family up to date, and so they were all there, and they were praying for us
Yeah.
and just waiting to hear what would happen. And so we were able to go to the house and cut the cake, and that's when we learned we were having a girl.
Oh, that's so were you expecting
Yeah.
were you feeling one way or the other for a boy or a
I
girl?
I thought she was a girl,
Mm,
but I was praying hard for it. I've always wanted a little girl. So I
yeah.
was just I mean begging, like,
Yeah.
please make it a girl, please, please. And Josh thought she was a girl as
Really?
well. And
Oh,
so it was great.
yeah. That was to be surrounded by your family who are actively praying for you and then also to have that
Yes.
also on top of it. That is wonderful.
Yeah.
I like to ask this question because it's kind of fun. So when you found out it was a girl, did you guys start thinking of little girl names or did you already have a list going of
Mhm.
names?
Yeah. So Josh found out when we started dating, if we have a girl, her name will be Kori. There was no question. I told him what his daughter's name would
You're
be.
like, I'm sorry, this is what's
And
going to
yep,
happen.
there's something you need to know.
If
And
this is
so
a
when
deal breaker.
yes, it absolutely was. I met a little girl when I was around 15 years old, and her name was Kori. And I thought that was the most beautiful name. And since then, I said then, if I ever have a little girl, I would name her Kori because it was just so beautiful to me.
Yeah.
And so that stayed with me. And
Yeah.
her name evolved a little bit with time. So my mom passed away in 2009 is when she
Okay.
passed away, and her name was Rose.
Uh-huh.
And so I said, okay, well, her name would be Kori Rose. Rose is her middle name.
Yeah.
And then Josh's mom passed away a couple of years ago, and her middle name was Joy. So then that's why Kori's first name ended up hyphenated. And then she got Joy as a middle name because I said, I can't leave my mother in love out of the picture in her name.
Yeah.
So that's how her name came together.
Oh, that is beautiful. I love how,
Yeah.
yeah, family names, they're so special, aren't they?
Yeah, they are.
I love how, and also that you remember this girl with this name and you're just like, that is the
Mhm.
name. That's the name.
Yep. Yep.
And
And
tuck
if
that
it
away.
were a boy, we would have to do some research because I didn't even allow myself to
Yeah, you're like, we're having a
entertain the
girl.
idea that it was a boy.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's so exciting and so fun. Okay, so then that was around the gender reveal was
Hmm.
around 12, 13 weeks, right?
That's right.
Okay. And then you were in excruciating pain for several weeks
Yes.
after that. But you were going in and getting checked, which is great. Like
Hmm.
the awareness of your doctor, your MFM, I think that's wonderful. Um, were you planning on getting like the 20-week ultrasound? Was that kind of the next big
Yes,
milestone for Kori?
it was. So our MFM performs the anatomy scan at 18 weeks
Okay, so
is
just a
the
smidge earlier.
earliest you can.
Yeah. Okay.
And so ours was scheduled for that 18-week mark.
Okay.
And up until that point, everything had been going perfect. We saw her every 2 weeks because
Yeah.
even when I would go see the nurse practitioner, she would still bring a bedside
Yeah.
ultrasound. And so we always got to see her. And some days she would be sucking her thumb.
Oh, I
Other
love
days she
that.
would have the hiccups.
Oh.
And I didn't feel a lot of her movements because of the fibroid. And
Uh-huh.
so it masked some of that.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
every time we saw her, I'd be like, she's doing somersaults in there, and I don't feel a thing. But
Yeah.
clearly, she was
She's
moving.
yeah, that is
Hmm.
so fun. And also kind of, I mean, darn it that you were in so much pain with the fibroids and such,
Yeah.
but what a blessing to be able to see her very regularly. Like that
Yes.
is
Yes.
that's really cool.
Yeah. And it definitely helped to ease any worries we could have had just out of
Mhm.
being
Mhm.
a new mom or having a first pregnancy. Because I saw her so often, I was pretty encouraged that things were okay.
Yeah. And it sounds like did Josh go to a lot of those appointments with you then?
He did. He went
Awesome.
to a lot of them, not all,
Yeah.
because they were so frequent and it would be
Ye
5 minutes,
yeah.
I go in, they do the thing, do the wand, and then that would be it.
Yeah.
And so I would tell him which ones were
Kind of the
important.
yes. Okay,
Yeah,
yes. You need to be here for this. You need to Good.
exactly.
Good.
Exactly.
Okay, so then you guys went in for the anatomy scan at 18 weeks then. Can you tell us how that
Mhm.
went?
Sure. So the first anatomy scan was interesting, is the word
Mm,
I'd use. So Corey, the way she was lying, the best way to envision it is she was facing my back. So her
okay.
back and her butt was,
Y yeah.
facing,
Mhm.
my belly. And as they were trying to take the pictures they needed, they struggled
Yep.
because she was not budging.
Yeah.
And so the ultrasound tech, I mean, bless her, she was just so calm and, didn't look like anything was going on. She's just clicking away. And
Yep.
Josh and I are just giggling because, Corey is like, I don't care what's going on right now. I'm chilling.
Yeah.
Yeah, she couldn't be bothered. And I love that for her. And so she's just hanging in there, and it was normal for them to put you in a different room after an ultrasound to have the doctor come in. And
Yes.
because I had so many, it was just like, okay, no big deal. But then the doctor took a while to come in. And that's when we started to worry because
Mm.
it just felt like, are they concerned about something? Like just the time,
Ye
it might have been 30, 40 minutes before the
Oh,
doctor came in. It was a
okay.
very long time.
Yeah.
And when she came in, she shared that one, they were not able to capture all of the images that they needed because of
Yes.
the way she was lying. So they wanted to reschedule. But they also felt like she wasn't moving enough. That at that point, they would have wanted to see more movement from
Yeah.
her.
Yeah.
But it was also possible that she was sleeping or,
Mhm.
just not in the mood at that moment. So
Yeah.
they wanted to look again, but they called that out. And they
Okay.
also felt like she presented a clubbed foot that
Oh,
they could see.
okay.
But outside of that, we left it concerned, but without a lot of answers because we need to see her again to get a feel for how she's developing because we can't see what we need,
Yes.
but we can see a couple of things that tells us that there needs to be additional monitoring. But at
Okay.
that point, none of it wasn't like there's a dire situation and we think there's something fatal happening, but it was enough to scare us to say, okay, something might be wrong with her at
Yeah.
that point.
Okay.
And
And
so
yeah, how are you and Josh feeling when you got done with that? Because when you're telling me these things, I'll be like, oh, that's a lot of just tiny little things that are
yeah,
concerning.
so confused was
Yes.
was it, and for me, I was just a wreck, just crying and
Yeah.
what is wrong, what is going on, why isn't she moving enough, and just trying to piece together what could be happening because up until that point we always saw her moving. She was
Yeah.
always
Very
very
active.
active, and she had been growing as expected. There was never any concern prior to the anatomy scan. So it was just a little bit of more questions than we had answers at that time.
Okay.
And they asked us to schedule for 2 weeks later. And
Okay.
I said, okay. And in my head, I thought, I'll be here next week. There's no way I'm going to make it
Yeah,
two
I can't
weeks.
wait. Yeah, I was like, I can't wait. I'm sorry.
No.
I'd be like,
So,
nope, nope. What do you have next
yep.
week? I'm coming in.
So I was there the next week. And they
Okay.
were like, you're back so soon. Absolutely. Because you're going to figure out what's happening here.
Hmm.
But I was very strategic. I ate lifesavers. I had candy
Yep.
and
So
I
you,
drank orange juice, all the things to get her nice and sugared up on the
yep.
way there to see, what she would do at that point. So we had a better anatomy scan the second time because she was moving the way
She usually does.
we're used to.
Yeah.
And they got almost all of the images they needed. Her organs were perfectly
Great.
developed for her age, and her brain, everything looked good. They still saw the clubbed foot,
They did.
and so
Okay.
they wanted to keep an eye out for that. And just as because sometimes it could appear to be a clubbed foot on the ultrasound, but it's not.
Yeah.
And but either way, that's what they think they saw, which was fine. Babies are
Hmm.
born with clubbed feet
Yeah.
every day.
And that
And
fine. Yep. They
yeah,
get it.
and
They
they
there's therapy and other things that can be done. Yep.
yep. So no problem there. And they still wanted to keep an eye out on her growth because now the fibroids were still there, right? And even getting to and seeing her was also a little. They had to move the wand in different ways, and I had to turn, and because sometimes the fibroids would create shadows, and
Oh.
so they wanted to just keep an eye out on how she was developing from that standpoint.
Okay.
And
I was gonna just say, and she was. You did say that she was moving as usual. Did they call any of her movements out this
they
anatomy scan again?
they did. So even though she was moving well in a way that was normal for us, they still wanted to see more movement from her.
I see.
And
Okay.
so and I remember thinking, well, what else could she do?
Yeah. Yeah.
But and so that was part of let's just keep an eye out and see what happens as she continues to develop. There was also I learned more about this after we delivered her, but her placenta was globular. So where
Hmm.
typically you expect a placenta to be big and like flat and
Flat.
just span
Yeah. Yeah, just the
the
uterine
sac.
wall. Yeah, uh-huh. Okay.
Yes. Hers was shorter and thick. So it was just a little high. So instead of it was, a little
Uh-huh.
higher.
Okay.
And she she used the placenta like a pillow is what she was doing. It's
It's very cozy here, Mom. I mean, I don't know what you want me
right,
to do.
exactly. And so she's lying across the placenta. And so it's like, well, yeah, I mean, she's
I
fine.
would want to do that too.
It seems like a good time to me.
Yeah. Mhm.
Um, but so that was a part of, she wasn't just kind of, if she were flipped over and kind of free moving would be one thing, but she was lying across the placenta. So that's where they said they wanted to see
Mm,
more from her there,
okay.
and really wanting to see even in her joints just how they move, because
Okay.
the way she was lying, she was you know
Hmm.
kind of hanging out.
Yeah. Just hanging out, which is
Yeah.
yeah, I love that for her.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Did they say anything about the fibroids also? Like they still I mean, obviously it was
Mhm.
casting some shadows and such, but were they noticing that were they growing? Were there any issues with them at that time, at that
At
around
that
19 weeks?
at that point, around 18 weeks, the fibroids had stopped growing,
Okay.
and the ones that were degenerating had stopped their degeneration
Okay.
activity. So at that point, they could see, and I don't know the exact science to it, but when the tissue degenerates, it's almost like it creates a bright spot when they look at it in ultrasound. So
Oh,
where typically it would just look like a muscle, just a ball of, it would be more gray. The
yeah.
ones that degenerated had white
Okay.
around them. If that,
Mhm.
so that's how they could see that degeneration happened. But because I wasn't in pain anymore, that it wasn't an active
Gotcha.
degeneration at that point.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, that's that's a lot. Even still then, that's a lot. Like you like and that's the other thing that I don't think people realize that sometimes that they go into the anatomy scan thinking, "Oh, everything's going to be wonderful. I'm going to learn the gender
Mhm.
of my baby." And then they don't realize that this is a really very important scan that needs to
It
happen to
is.
confirm a lot of things, to make sure everything's
Mhm.
good, make plans for looking after the
Yeah,
development and such. So yeah, that's kind of
yeah.
a lot. And then also at kind of around 20 weeks, some people start to feel movement. So because the way your placenta
Mhm.
was made and such, you were saying that you didn't feel her doing tons of stuff. Is that correct? Like were you feeling
That's
any
right.
movements?
I
Okay.
started to feel movement maybe around that 19-week mark.
Hmm.
19 to 20 weeks is when I started feeling something.
Okay.
And I thought, I think this might be her, because it was a sensation I hadn't felt before,
Okay.
but it wasn't frequent, right?
Yeah.
It would just be every random day or every now and then. And then around the 19-week mark is when I started to feel it more consistently. And it was
Gotcha.
never a kick, but it was almost like a swoosh. Like
Oh,
it would
okay.
just be,
Yeah.
yeah. That's the
Okay.
best way I could describe it.
Yeah.
And so I started to feel her move in that way.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Mm,
I Placentas are funny and great, right? They're so wonderful, but they can really
yeah.
just like, oh, I have an anterior placenta and I can't feel a thing, or like you're in
Uh-huh.
your situation where you're like, this is a really different feeling that I thought it was going to be. So,
Yeah. And they said, and even if she were kicking or, doing things, the fibroids could also mask it as well.
oh yeah,
So, so there were several things happening in there.
yeah. Okay, then tell me how things progress because you're now gonna I mean, now you're definitively getting monitored a bit more because it sounds like they want to make sure she's developing.
Yes.
Things aren't an issue in regards to her movements and such. So did you get seen like 21 weeks or so? Tell me.
I did.
Okay.
So at that point, we had, I feel like we had an appointment every other week or
Yeah.
every almost week and a half is what it
Gotcha.
started to feel like.
Okay.
Because we, after the second anatomy scan, there were 2 images that they couldn't get of her heart. And so they recommended that we go to have, oh, it escapes me. They recommended we have an echo.
Oh, yes. Okay. Like a fetal echo. That's, yeah.
Yes.
And that's a very specific, like you usually have to go to like a children's hospital and that type of thing, right?
Yes. And so they wanted us to do that because they said, well, what they could see of her heart looked good, and there weren't any concerns about her heart. The way she was lying across the placenta, they couldn't get the image that they needed.
Gotcha.
But the echo had the right level of technology or, visibility to get those images. And at that point, the anatomy scan would be complete because they would have had all of the images they
I
needed.
see. Okay.
And so that was scheduled for 22 weeks and a few days.
Okay, great.
And so up until that point, so between the 19-week mark and 22 weeks, everything was perfect. We went into what they called it the second trimester honeymoon.
So
It
wonderful.
was beautiful. My energy was coming back. And it was so funny that I started to have real cravings, but like Kori loved McDonald's, and every morning I had to have my sausage McGriddle and a smoothie and an oatmeal.
Oh, that is so funny.
Oh, and she loved ramen noodles. And I just kept saying to Josh, this girl wants all the unhealthy stuff. Like I don't know what to do because if I don't have it, then
You,
my
you,
body goes crazy.
no, seriously, it's a thing, people.
Yeah. And my best friend, and she was just like, I can't believe you're eating all this ramen. She sent me a package of it's like instant pho. It's not instant, but you pour the hot water
Oh yeah,
in.
yes,
So
yep.
she was like, this is, better. No,
No,
it wasn't.
didn't do the trick.
Did not. I went back to ramen. It was like I
That
just
is
give my
hilarious.
body what it takes,
Yeah,
and that's it.
yeah.
But things were great. We were preparing for just we were preparing for the baby shower,
Okay.
and it just I think we just had that blissful kind of expectation that she would be here, and we had a plan as far as, okay, if she does have a club foot, I had done all the research already on the Ponseti method, and you do a cast and you do boots and bars and all the things.
Yep, all the things.
So I had already started looking at orthopedic, surgeons for babies just in case we needed it.
Yep.
And we were fine.
Yeah.
And so on August 30th, we went to our normal OB appointment. And it was funny because I started to feel something kind of high in my belly. And I'm like, what? So I asked the nurse, what is up here? Because something just, I don't know what this is. And so she puts the wand up and she was like, that's Kori's head. And I thought, well, how did she get up there?
You're like, how did she get herself into that situation?
Yeah.
You're moving around a bit. Okay.
Yes. And so that was fun, right? It would just be a game of where is Kori? And I'd be like, well, nope, that's a fibroid. Oh, that must be her butt, and so it was sweet. The kids were so excited about having a little sister, and they would say, is she ready yet? Because they'd say, I just wish she was here now. And I'd say, well, she's not ready yet. She's too little. And so that became the thing in our family. Is she ready
Is she ready yet?
Every day. And we were like, no, not yet.
That is the cutest.
And I said to them, when it's cold out, is when she'll be ready. Because at this point it was summer, right? So just
Yes.
trying to
That's a
give them
perfect.
something
Yep.
to anchor to. But yeah, it was all great
Yeah.
for while it lasted.
Yeah. Did you
Yeah.
guys I know that you said that you were preparing for a baby shower. When was that going to be when was that planned?
We were going to do it at the 30-week mark.
Okay.
And so that was going to be at the in October. The end
Yeah.
of October
Yeah.
is when we
Okay.
had planned to do that. And my best friend said she was like, I'm going to plan it. It's a surprise. And she was like, you're just gonna have to live with that because I like to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Um and she started sending boxes to my house and she's like, don't open the box. And so even now the boxes in my closet, I have no idea what's
Are
in it.
still there.
I
Oh.
refuse to open it. Yeah.
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 Okay. So you guys are going along and then did you go in for that echo? Were they able to
Yes.
visualize everything that they needed at that time? Because, like you said, that was around 22-ish weeks, a little
That's
over
right.
22 weeks, right?
That's right. So it was at the echo that we learned her heart was no longer beating.
Or,
And so, yeah.
oh my gosh.
Yes.
Okay. Tell me how that
It,
went.
yeah. So we, it was bizarre because on a Friday, we had our normal appointment and her heart was strong. It was fine. We saw her,
Yeah.
we saw her swallowing and, doing her thing. And the echo was that following Wednesday, a
So
few days later.
just a few days later.
And so for that one, I told my husband, you don't need to go to this. It's going to be quick. It is, just to get the last two pictures. And I had a workshop to lead that day for work. And so it was just like, we also had the kids that week.
Yeah.
And so I told him, you take the kids to school, you go to the office, and I'll be fine. And we go into I go into the appointment and the technician is looking, you know, with the wand and she's moving the wand around a lot and I'm a little confused because Kori's heart always just comes up
Jump. Yeah.
as soon as you put the wand down. And but she wasn't saying anything. And because this was a different facility, a different type of ultrasound, I
Yes.
just I wasn't worried. I just didn't know what was going on. And as she's moving the wand around and I said to her that, hey, I do have fibroids, so that might be impacting, what you can see. So just calling that out. And then I also said, usually this is where she is, like just trying to give her a
Hmm.
general vicinity because she was new, we had never seen it work together before. And she doesn't say anything and she says, well, can you go to the bathroom and maybe jump around and like move around? Let's see if that helps because she had me lay on my side and on the other side and she wasn't getting, what she needed. And so I go to the bathroom and still I'm not thinking anything.
Yeah.
And I'm jumping around. I'm like, how do you
Yeah.
jump around for this?
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm
Exactly.
doing.
Just
That felt
yeah.
ridiculous,
Yeah.
but whatever. And I go back in and she tries again. And I said, well, you know, here I am trying to help the lady do her job. Maybe you need more of the jelly stuff. Like
Yeah.
maybe because and just trying to help guide her, but she didn't tell me why she kept, what she was doing. And so a little while later, she says, well, the doctor is on her way in. Maybe she'll be able to see what I can't. And I thought, okay, no problem. And so the doctor comes in and she sits down. I don't even think she told me her name, but she said, how are you? I said, I'm great. I said, my little one isn't cooperating. So I don't know what's going on. Maybe you'll be able to find, what you need. And she said, well, we think she's passed away.
Oh.
And I'm like, what? She just said, we think she's passed away. And so I'm confused because what do you mean? And that's what I said to her. What do you mean? And that's when she told me that the ultrasound technician was not finding her heartbeat, and she was not finding she tried looking for blood flow to the brain and just trying to, and she wasn't
Anything.
able to find that. So that's what she was doing
Yeah.
when, while she was moving the wand around. And so I'm in a state of shock, really. And so I don't react in any way other than like, no, that, look again. Like that just doesn't make any sense. Because to me, I just saw her a
Just
few
saw
days
her.
ago.
Yeah.
And so they call in the director of, the clinic or the
Yeah.
department, and she says, we haven't been able to find signs of that Kori is alive, or she didn't say Kori, that the baby is alive. And she said, but I'm going to look myself. And she said, and I promise I will take my time, but that is what's going on right now. And so she looks again, and she changes the screen to a different type of view, and as soon as Kori came up on the screen, I knew that she was gone.
Oh.
Because her heart was just, you see the flicker. There's
Yep.
no denying it.
Yeah.
And the other view, that the echo view looks different on an ultrasound than the traditional
Yeah.
view. And so when the technician was looking, I couldn't make out really what she was looking at.
Yeah.
But in this other view, I could see Kori's whole body right away on the screen. And I saw that there was no flicker. It was just her body. And I'm still in a bit of shock and still just trying to process what's happening. And eventually it hits me, and I start crying, and they recommend that I go into another room to speak with someone else about, what comes next. And so Josh is taking the kids to school. I'm by myself at
Yeah.
this point. And so they're saying, call your husband, maybe he could come. And I'm like, I don't want him to come. I would like to leave this place right now, because clearly, like, I don't want to be here. And so they say to me, well, we have to talk about delivery. It didn't even dawn on me, Winter, that I would have to deliver her.
I know.
And I thought, okay, so I'm calling Josh, and he's like, what's going on? And I said, are the kids in the car? And he said, yes. And I said, I won't tell you while the kids are in the car. You have to take them to school and call me. And so he kept calling and asking. I said, you must drop them off first, because I knew, like, that was going to be too much to navigate. And he's driving, and,
Yeah.
so he calls me after he drops them off, and I tell him that Kori has passed away. And he needs to come to where we are, which was 45 minutes away.
Oh.
1 second. 45 minutes away from where he was. And the doctor shared that we started talking about options. And so I was never supposed to be able to deliver her vaginally, because I have a history of surgery already. And so they started talking about DNC, or is it a DNE? I think it's a DNE. I think
Yeah.
DNCs happen earlier, and
Yeah.
a procedure
Yeah.
to have her delivered. And it was just all so confusing, because it was just supposed to be a regular day,
Yeah.
And so Josh gets there and they start to talk to us about what our options are. And they recommend that we have the surgical procedure to remove her because the risk of me going into the risk of me being induced was too high because they didn't want to have a rupture happen.
Yeah.
And so we agreed to that procedure. And we just sat there for a while, Josh and I, and really confused. Um, and so it was scheduled for a week later that we would have that procedure. And I remember thinking, well, what do I do for a week? Like, is that okay? Can you carry a baby that's passed away for
Yeah.
that long? It
Yeah.
seemed odd to me, but they said that it was fine, and unless I ended up in pain or anything of the sort before my appointment, that I would be okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Karen.
Yeah.
Did you end up telling your family after that point in time, your kids? And
We didn't tell the kids right away, but we did tell, we told close, family that was near. And I called and told my best friends.
yeah.
And one of them, Erica, I called her, let's say it was 5 o'clock on a Wednesday. And by 5 o'clock on Thursday, she was here. And because I was here alone and without family, and I have my Josh's family, my extended family,
Yeah. Yeah.
but just, I didn't have
Your support,
my,
your people
yeah, my
too.
people. And so that kicked off a series of visits of my best friends flying in, and apparently there was a group text and they were just all coordinating
Oh.
who was coming when, so there was a revolving door of visitors. But that was, yeah, that was that was tough. And the benefit to having that week was I could do research. I had never, the idea of losing a baby that far along didn't even, never crossed my
Yeah.
mind. And I don't know one person who had experienced a stillbirth. And so all of this is so new. And so now it's okay, what do I do next? And as I was laying in the bed grieving, I would just watch videos, and that's how I found you. In that week between delivering her and finding out she had passed away, I was just on YouTube listening to stories of lost moms and just getting insights of like, what did they do? What are the, just trying to learn. And I was able to think through things such as, do you want to hold the baby? Do you want to take pictures? Do you,
Yeah.
what mementos do you want to bring? And I could have those just kind of in my back pocket. But then as we continued to plan for the delivery, I learned that when you do a D&E, you don't get to see the baby. And that just tore me to pieces because I thought I wouldn't get to see my girl. But I had accepted it that, what can I do? It is what it is. And so it hurt, but that was the plan. And 1 second. We're in the process of figuring out how we're going to deliver her. And they give us the plan. And I was supposed to go on a Thursday for a procedure where they put sticks in your cervix. Sticks isn't the right word, but there's small little things that in essence make your cervix dilate.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And it softens, or not
yeah.
softens, is it? When they say you're this amount dilated and this amount effaced,
Yeah.
it helps with that process.
Yeah.
Then the next day was the scheduled procedure. So day 1 is getting everything ready, and then day 2 they actually do the procedure. So
Karen, can I just ask a question? So I know that
of course.
you realize that you weren't able to, you probably, because of the procedure, you would not be able to meet Kori. And was there, I guess, any further discussion with your providers, your doctors, about any different way, like if delivery was possible? I realize, like you said, you had a surgery previously, and just they were very concerned about rupturing, and so that risk is basically outweighing a
Exactly.
vaginal delivery. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
So it wasn't an option that
Okay.
they would recommend.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we spent those days again, because there was a week and a half between when we found out and when we would actually deliver her. And we spent that time preparing for that, trying to hide our pain from the kids, trying to do our best to navigate life. And I at this point, I'm still pregnant,
Yes.
she's still in there. But it was also beautiful during that time because Josh's company, his manager, came over the day after we found out she had passed away. And he kept calling and he wanted to see Josh. And Josh is like, this is just not a good time.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm coming. And so he came over and he spent time with Josh, and they just had good conversation. And it's important for me to share this because in that moment, our faith was really shaken. And because we felt like Kori was our gift, that we had done all the right things and we were good people, and we prayed for her, and just all roads lead, just all things felt like she was our blessing and an answered prayer. So when she was no longer with us, that was hard to wrap our minds around. Like, how could this be possible? And Josh's manager came and he really encouraged us. And then he started, unbeknownst to us, a meal train.
Oh.
And so then people started showing up with food every day.
Yeah.
And my team, I work with, my team is spread across the country, and I got, Uber Eats gift cards from the people who knew, right?
Yeah.
And then flowers start pouring in. And so it was this time of profound pain, but it was also extremely beautiful. And just to be here and feel like I didn't have my community or my village, but all along, God had a plan for us. And there was a village that I didn't even know existed.
Yeah.
And they showed up for us in such an incredible way. And so we didn't have to worry about cooking or doing anything really, because everything was taken care of for us. And so when the time came, the following week, I started having cramping, but I, something was always cramping in my pregnancy. So
Yeah.
I
It
just
was
figured something in my body was doing, it wasn't surprising for me that I was having cramping, and it didn't bother me at all. And one night, and this was a Wednesday night, one of the leaders from his company, came over and had dinner with us. So there was, on the meal train, you could drop off food. And I had never heard of a meal train before
yeah.
this, for the record. And so there's also an option to come and sit and eat too.
Oh.
And I said to Josh, like, this is not the time. Not feeling social right now. But he doesn't live in the state. And so it was just like, it's fine. We'll power through. Right.
Yeah.
So we end up having this beautiful dinner with him, and he leaves, and Josh and I are watching a movie, and the pain is just intensifying. And I said, I have a lot of cramps. And so we called the on call,
Mm.
and I said, I have cramps, and I explained what was happening. And he said, are you bleeding? And I said, no. And the next day we were already scheduled for the
For the
procedure to
yeah.
open the cervix and do all the
Right.
things. And he said, well, there's, unless you're bleeding, I think it's fine for you to just stay home and come in the morning for your appointment. And then I went to the bathroom and I started bleeding, and it was a lot. And
Oh.
so we decided to drive
Okay.
to the hospital, and it's 45 minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
So it takes a while. And we got there, and they checked, and they said, well, you're 1 centimeter dilated, and you're having contractions, but they're not, anything, remarkable. So
Did you
we
know
you
those were
can
did you know those were contractions?
I did not.
You just thought it was regular cramping.
Yes, yes. So, and they said you could stay or go home, and you have an appointment tomorrow already. So, and so we decided to go home. So we got home at maybe 2 o'clock in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
and our appointment was, let's say, I don't know, 8 a.m. So we got a couple of hours of sleep, and before we had to get up and head back
Yeah.
to that side of town. And at that point, around 7:30, is when the cramping I was feeling became more consistent.
Oh,
And
okay.
I said, okay, now I know these are contractions now, but they're happening every few minutes. So I didn't know, I don't think I had registered that I was in labor,
Yeah.
but I knew that they were contractions.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I downloaded an app because I watched a video and someone said how they keep track of their contractions, right? So this is
You're like,
where,
we're gonna do this.
yes. So I downloaded the app so I can keep track of how often they were coming. And they were lasting about a minute, and they were coming every 5 minutes.
Oh.
And
Okay.
so it was like, okay, I don't know what this means, but we're on our way anyway. So no big deal. We get to the hospital to do the procedure, and the doctor walks in as I'm having a contraction, and I am doubled over, like all the things.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. And she said, I'll be back. So she stepped outside, and she came back, and she said, based on the contraction you just had, we need to do we need to check you because I don't know if we can do the procedure that we're supposed to do today. And when they checked, I was only 3 centimeters dilated, but I was like 80% effaced.
Uh-huh.
And she said, the procedure that you came here for today, your body already did it.
Is doing it.
So you can just wait for the next step, which was the procedure. I don't think it's surgery, but for the
Yeah.
whatever it's called.
Yeah.
And so because my body had already done the process of preparing for delivery, she checked to see if the surgeon was available to do the procedure that day because I was clearly, moving through labor. And so she put him on the radar that, this needed to
This
happen today. And she sent us to labor and delivery so that they could monitor me in the meantime.
mm-hmm.
And there was a nurse who was an angel of a woman. And she helped me through my contractions.
Mm-hmm.
And she taught me, she said, think about it as a wave. She said, it's only a minute, right? It's going to peak. And as soon as you hit that peak, it's going to come right back down. So she taught to me, she coached me through
Yeah.
how to navigate the contractions. And she stayed with us all the way up until we were put into a room, which was maybe 45 minutes.
Oh.
And I didn't know it at the time, but they were really thoughtful to put me in a room that was in a corner. So you can't hear anything. Like you have to pass bookshelves to get to it. It
Yeah.
was, and that's what was taking the time because they wanted me somewhere where I didn't hear babies crying and I didn't hear, mothers in labor. And we get in there and we start to prepare for what's about to happen. And the nurse comes in and she says, the doctor will be in here soon and we need to talk about your options. And I thought, I don't have any options. This is where I am. And I explained to her the situation. And she said, well, the medication that is typically used to induce labor is what is not recommended to give to you because of your circumstance. But because your body has already done what the induction
Oh.
medication would do, now you have options. You can try to deliver her.
Oh.
And I thought, okay, well, that's what I want to do if I
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
And she said, well, let's get an ultrasound. Let's see, because she was breached just a
But
few days
before,
earlier. Her
yeah.
head was, right
Right up
under
in your
my, right
yeah.
under my chest. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she said, we'll get an ultrasound. We'll figure out what's going on. It's probably going to be a long day. And, but we'll do what we can. And so she is talking to me on one side and I'm already in a gown and all of that and the, mesh panties and, the
All the
like,
things.
so fashionable.
Yes, completely.
And her partner is on the other side of me looking for a vein to set up my, the
Just
IV
IV.
and
Mm-hmm.
all the things. And I start to have a contraction and I said, and just as I'm talking to you, I was speaking to her and I said, give me 1 second because I'm about to have a contraction. And I start to breathe through it and I say, this one is different. And I feel a pop and a push and I said, something just came out. And so she moves the blankets and everything. And she said, you just delivered your daughter.
Are you serious?
Yeah. So it was the most incredible thing because I wasn't supposed to see her. And I can't even take any credit for delivering her because it happened on its own.
Kori wanted out. She wanted to meet you.
Yes. She said, I'm out of here. Um and so now there is like chaos
Yeah.
because
Yeah. Yeah.
because they're like, she just delivered the baby. And we had talked about epidurals, and I'm like, absolutely, I want an epidural. Yes, ma'am. Give me the things. And and so they were, going to get all those things in place, and it never happened
Yeah.
because
She wanted to come.
she wanted to come. And so they're trying to now find a doctor because I just delivered a baby with the nurse, and and they come in, and so now it's time to deliver the placenta, and they give me some medication. I don't remember what it's called, but I remember the side effects are nausea and diarrhea is what they told me,
You're
right?
like, wonderful.
And right, exciting. And so, and after I had Kori, right after she came out, my body just, I started sweating. And so now just, I don't know what's happening, but my body is like, I'm really hot. And so they're trying to rip all the gowns off of me. And so that was a little scary because it just went from me, like the baby coming out, to my body going into some kind of event that I
Yeah.
don't know what happened there. And so once they cool me down and they start to say, okay, we need to deliver the placenta, and they give me whatever this medication is, and I feel nauseous, but I haven't eaten because I was supposed to have a procedure.
Exactly.
So that's not helping. That I'm trying to throw up, but nothing's in there. And then I feel like I have to use the bathroom.
Yeah.
And they're like, but you can't use the bath. You can't go to the toilet because if your placenta comes out, like we need it not in water. Like it
Yeah.
has to come out on this bed.
Yeah.
And so we still laugh about this to this day because they said, just go. It's fine. Like just you go on the bed.
Yeah.
And I said, absolutely not.
I have pride.
I don't care what is happening. You are not about to convince me to no thank you. So that's so funny.
I'm dying.
Oh, and
Karen, really quickly,
yes,
before we get to the placenta, where's Kori? Did you end up seeing her?
yes,
Okay, good. Because I was like, she
yes,
was born, and then you got to see her. Did they put you on your chest, or I know that you kind
yes.
of looked at all those options anyway, and so
Yeah. So they took her right away. So when
okay.
she came out, they took her for measurements and
Oh, they did. Okay,
things of that nature while they tried to figure out the
the placenta.
placenta
Okay, and cooling you down
delivery.
too, and right, like
Yes,
okay,
yes. And so they we finally get the placenta out, and it and so at that point my levels start to balance out once
oh, okay,
we deliver the placenta, which took a little bit. And they asked us if we wanted to hold her, and I did. Josh didn't want to initially, which was fine. I still refer to that day as the best version of the worst day of my life.
yeah,
Like if there were, it couldn't have gotten any better than that
yeah,
for such a horrible day.
yeah,
And to be able to see her,
yeah,
and she had eyebrows, and and her features were so pronounced, and we knew from the anatomy scan that, so the technician had said, well, she's got daddy's noggin. But she,
Oh, that's hilarious.
yeah. And she's like, but she has mommy's lips. And so to look at her and just and see myself, and just because she was a little me, and it was the wildest thing.
Yeah.
And even now, when I look in the mirror, I see her, I think about her, and sometimes Josh will look at me and say, "It is so wild how much she looked like you." And so she had his head, but she had all of my features. Um, and so I got to spend time with her, and they said, "You can stay as long as you want. You don't have to leave." They got there's a name for it, the bassinet.
Oh, the cuddle cot or something
Yes,
similar to that. Yeah. Okay.
yes. So they got that, and there was a cooling thing in it, so to keep
Mm-hmm.
her cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so Josh stayed a while, and one of my best friends had come in town to be there the next day when I had the procedure.
Yeah.
But since I had delivered her on Thursday, he came to the hospital, and so I told Josh, like, you and Michael go,
Yeah.
and I just want to stay here with her. And so I spent the night with her, and I had to convince Josh, but I was like, I need to be with her alone for a little bit. And since we had guests too, it just made sense for him to go and, navigate that. So I read to her,
Oh.
and I sang to her, and I just told her about us and the
Mhm.
dreams we had for her, and you know just so happy that even though it ended the way that it did, she still made me a mommy,
Yeah.
and I was grateful for her. And so we spent that night together, and the next day, Josh came early in the morning, and we started getting ready, um, for us to leave. It was, there's one thing to deliver a baby, and because that wasn't our plan,
Yeah.
I hadn't I was unprepared for the what came next. I was unprepared to stay in the hospital with her. I was unprepared. I didn't have a bag. I didn't
And
have clothes. I
yeah.
didn't have anything. I was unprepared for having to leave her, because in some ways I had started to wrap my mind around the fact that having the procedure, although I wouldn't get to see her, it would be more of an in and out for me mentally. Like there wouldn't be
Mhm. Mhm.
the having to leave her behind.
Yeah.
And but again, we were so fortunate in the team that we had, because when the person from Decedent Care came, um, she was asking us questions, and I think, and it was protocol, but it was something like she asked Josh if he was the father, and and I joked, I said, "Well, he better be."
That's his noggin on this kid.
Right, exactly. And so, even through what we were going through, Josh and I, we joke and laugh all day. And so we still like made, silly comments and things like that. So uh, every person who came into our room left laughing, or, and so she explained to us the process and what our options were as far as if we wanted to take her and have a service, or, things of that nature. And so we decided that we did not want to have a service,
Mm.
or
Mhm.
We wanted to close it there,
Yeah.
right? Like we didn't want to go through grieving losing her and making
And
arrangements and people having to fly in, and because Josh's family is here, my extended family through Josh is here, but all of my family would have to come.
yeah.
And so it didn't feel like the right thing to do for us.
Mhm.
And we wanted to move into the next
Yeah.
chapter
Yeah.
of this journey. And so, but what was great was when I said I was ready to go and we called them to come and get her, I asked, how will you take her? And she told me they had a box that they would put her in and take her that way. And I asked, can I put her in the box? And they said yes. So she left and came back. And she came with the smallest little casket, and in a blanket, and so they allowed Josh and I to put Kori in the box and prepare her little place, and so she was cremated at the hospital. We didn't
Oh,
When you take that option, you don't get to have the ashes.
yeah.
But that's what we thought was the best thing at that time.
That is what, yeah, you do what is best for you and your family. And
Yeah,
um that's I think that's so special to be able to put her there and like say
yeah,
goodbye to her that way. When
yeah,
I kept getting chills that I was like, this wasn't supposed to be the way it happened. You were not
no,
even supposed to get the chance to meet her or anything. And I just am astounded that it played out that way. And I was like, Kori wanted to meet you too. Like I just
yes,
think how fun that is to think about her. Like, Mom, you're gonna go into labor. Like I'm coming.
yes, yes, she did, and I also felt like in that week where we were struggling with our faith, that that was God's way of telling me, I'm still here, and I still got you, and you're going to be okay, and that was clear to me that you hear about miracles and all of that, and her delivery was a miracle
Yeah.
because it was not supposed to happen that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm so grateful that it did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Karen, did they when they were talking to you and just going back to when you started making arrangements for this a while back, did, did they have any discussion about what had happened? Um, and then did they have additional discussions about what had happened after the delivery as well as delivery of the placenta? Was there
Yeah.
anything that pointed to what had caused her to pass?
No,
Okay.
we don't know. We were given the option to do an autopsy,
Oh,
and we were
really?
given the option to do some other kind of testing,
Okay.
and we opted not to. And, looking back on it, I wish we had more information. So you're in the throes of grief, right? Just trying to process.
Yeah.
And so an autopsy is the last thing on my mind.
Exactly.
And so knowing what I know now, which is nothing, I would have probably made a different decision just to try and get more information about what happened. But I remember in that time when we had the option, thinking, well, whatever the reason is, she's not here now. So what can I do with that information? And there was never a genetic issue with her
Mhm.
that we were aware of. Even,
Mhm.
we did the early screens. So it just felt like it was just leaving a wound open to wait for reports to come back and possibly tell us nothing, because
Mhm.
they said, oftentimes it's inconclusive. And I think in some way I was trying to protect my future self from receiving a report that gave me nothing,
Yeah.
and just holding on to, hope that we would learn something. And so we opted out of those, but they did do a placenta pathology
Yeah. Okay.
review, and they didn't identify
Anything.
anything from that standpoint. Her placenta was exactly the way that it was supposed to be. Yeah.
Oh yeah. That is one of the things that is so hard, making those. I mean, it's kind of a big decision, and then just. I mean, I just think it back that you were like, I'm just going to the hospital just to make sure everything's okay. I'm bleeding. And then you're
Yeah.
like, I delivered my baby and she
Uh-huh.
came. I mean, like, just talk about being unprepared. I mean, in the sense
Yeah.
of you were not expecting the day to go the
No.
way it did. And
No.
so the
No.
just to, I was just thinking like, I would not be in my right mind to make that
Yeah.
kind of decision. So I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah.
How I like to ask these things. How much did she weigh, and how long was she?
She weighed, her weight was in grams, actually.
Yeah, because she's little,
Um,
probably little itty bitty.
yes, she was a little thing. Um, she weighed 300 grams
Oh, yeah.
and 10 ounces, 10.6 ounces. And she was 26 centimeters,
Oh,
or
little.
10 and a quarter inches.
Okay, just a little
So,
itty bitty thing, but
yeah,
that's
yeah.
so wonderful. And it sounded like you did quite a number of things with her on your own.
Hmm.
And you held her a lot. Did Josh end up holding her? Because you said that at the first he didn't want to, and once again, that is something that when you're confronted with decisions that you had no idea you were going to have to make. So, um,
Yeah,
did
he
he?
did hold her.
He did.
Yeah, Josh was able to hold her, and he spent time with her too. And it was funny when we were leaving, I was holding her and, doing things while holding her. And he was like, are you gonna let me hold her? And I was like, oh, I'm sorry.
Yes, I would love for you to.
Yeah, so sorry. Here you go. Here's your daughter. I'll go brush my teeth now.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's really cute.
yeah. It was sweet, and I know he's happy that he did too. I think for Josh, he is. I, it is forever ingrained in my brain. His face, as because the way it all happened, he's standing like towards the edge of the bed,
Yeah.
and so she comes out, and now what's it, the fundus, or the thing when they
The
have to push down
Yes,
and
yeah.
do all that.
Oh,
So he doesn't know what's going on, but he's on the other end seeing all the things come on out, and he's just like,
I can imagine.
oh my goodness. It was so, poor guy was traumatized by the end of all of that.
Yes, yes.
Oh, it's
Oh,
hilarious.
yeah. Were you guys able to take any pictures, or
We did.
video? You did. Okay, wonderful.
We did. The nurses took pictures. They had them printed out for us,
Oh, good.
which was so kind. The social worker came, and she gave us books
Mm.
for the kids.
Oh, good.
And it was incredible because they were all books that were in my Amazon cart that I was going to buy anyway.
You're like,
And
excellent.
because at the time the kids were 4 and 8, and so there's one book for the 4-year-old,
Yeah.
and like age appropriate. And they also gave me a box of so there is another lost mom who made all these boxes and gave them to the
Oh.
hospital for anyone else who came and had the same experience, with a journal and a pen and a little hat.
Oh.
And, so we didn't get to put those on Kori, and partially because she had been passed but she had been in her sack for a week.
Yes.
So her
skin was probably so fragile.
Yes. And so we still have those things and the blankets that she, was wrapped in and all of that.
That's so special. I treasure those those items so much. You're like, yeah, this is what my son was in, and so I'm gonna keep it forever.
Mm-hmm.
And so you were at the hospital, and I'm assuming you called your family at the time. Josh, it sounds like Josh was keeping everybody up to date. Did anybody else get to meet Kori, or was it just you and Josh?
Just the two of us.
Okay, yeah. Sometimes it's a little tricky getting people into the hospital. It just really kind of depends on how that looks.
Yeah.
And so,
and we thought, if everyone can't get to meet her, then no one gets to meet her.
Yeah. Okay.
Just from that standpoint.
Yeah.
So the two of us, and even afterwards, we shared just pictures and yeah.
That's so special. I know. Yeah. There's so many decisions to be made and everything. So.
Yeah, and even with sharing with the kids, so we wanted to wait until we had delivered her.
Mm-hmm.
Because it felt like it would be too confusing to explain that she had passed away, but she was still inside of me, and didn't want to concern them with the fact that I had to have surgery to take her out. And so we waited until after that had happened. And then when they came back home is when we told them that she had passed away.
Okay. I think that was really smart, but you're right. I think that would be very confusing for a little kid to just be like, "Wait, what? Why?" Yeah.
Yeah.
Karen, I'm so sorry. I just think I'm just astounded at your story. I'm astounded at Kori. Like she was a little fierce thing that just wanted to get here and made it happen. I'm so, like you said, it's a miracle. I'm like,
really, she is so special because there are things that we live today because of her. So even we had planned to move at some point, and we thought, okay, we'll give it another year and then we'll move. And when we found out we were pregnant with Kori, I was like, nope, we are moving ASAP because this baby needs space. And, and so we started the process of finding a home for what would be, our family of 6 now.
Mm-hmm.
And we found a new construction community that we loved. And so for context, we found out we were pregnant on April 24th. And by May 20th, we had already put a deposit down to start construction.
Wow, you guys got going. Yeah, you're like, Kori made things happen.
She is so, and after we lost her, we after we lost Kori, Josh shared with one of the men from church that he had met, and we started attending our church when we were pregnant with her. But we would go and leave, and so you see people, you say hi, but we didn't know anyone intimately. And so one day after service, I guess someone asked Josh how he was doing, and he had shared that we had lost our daughter. And he called his wife over and others, and they prayed for us. But then what happened was this web came together of people from the church that showed up for us and spent time with us and spent time with me. And some of the women that I met, we went to lunch and we went to dinner, and they texted me prayers and they texted me just to check on me. And these were women that I met for the
Just,
first time.
yeah.
And now I have friends, I have community, and I have relationships that are really deep and authentic. And all of that happened because of Kori. I went on the day that I delivered her. If the person wasn't related to Josh, I did not know them in this town. And today I have friends that I talk to all the time. We had Galentine's a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so she gave me community that I would have never had otherwise. So her life was just so full of purpose. Yeah.
Oh, that's just beautifully said. Just beautifully said.
Yeah. Thank you.
Kori was so small and so mighty
Yes, she was.
in your life, and I just think that is wonderful.
Yeah.
One thing, Karen, I just realized I meant to ask this at the very beginning, actually, but
Please.
Kori was born like 6 months ago.
Yes.
So I just want to point out it was like September of 2024. So like that was 6 months ago. And
It was.
just for context, I just think of how, I mean, that was not long ago. And that is, um, that's a lot of real, still very fresh grief for you. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
just so sorry. And but so blessed to hear her story today. Um,
Yeah.
so thank you so much, Karen, for sharing her story. Before we close up, is there anything you would like to say about her and anything else that we may have missed?
I think that our babies come to us for a reason, and they all have purpose for us. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that Kori chose me because she knew that there were some things that needed to happen in my life. And she was like, Mom's not going to do it if I don't go. So, and I'm just so proud of her because she was so strong. And I do believe that she would have been quite the firecracker on this side. So, um, but we've pretty much covered it all. And
Wonderful.
thank you for the opportunity to share her story.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm just so glad I got to meet the firecracker.
Yes,
Well, thank you again, Karen.
thank you.